hat.
Hi there. Welcome back to the Complicated Kids podcast. I'm your host, Gabriele Nicolet. I am a toddler whisperer, a speech therapist, and a parent coach. And today I am joined by Frances Shefter. Frances, welcome.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Thank you for having me. I'm
I'm
excited to be
delighted.
here.
Yeah, I'm delighted that you're here because we're going to talk about some things, but I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself first. Tell the good people who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I'm Frances Shefter. I am currently an education attorney and advocate. I started my career as a teacher. So I have my undergrad in early childhood, my master's in special ed, 7 years in the classroom, 2 years as special ed coordinator, and then decided, I'm not making the difference anymore. So I went to law school. I am also mom to two neurodiverse children. So I'm all areas on the IEP cycle and at the
I
table.
didn't know that you were a teacher as well. That brings a really interesting, fantastic twist to this whole thing.
Yes. And that's what I like to say is that I'm the only person at the IEP table that can say that I've been in five seats because I've been general education teacher, special education teacher, the LEA rep, the attorney, obviously, and the mom. So it's like the perspectives I bring, like I've sat in your seat, I know what you're saying, and this is a different way to look at it.
So interesting. Okay, so right before we hit record, I said, what do people need to know that they don't know? You said everything. I said,
Right.
okay, but let's narrow it down a teeny bit. And so you said something interesting. So tell us what you said, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So the schools don't always know everything. And this comes from like when I was a teacher and then the special ed coordinator. I thought I was doing everything the way we were supposed to do it. And then I went to law school and then I started doing more research on special ed law. And I started saying, yeah, maybe that wasn't exactly the way we are supposed to do things. And maybe that wasn't totally legal the way we did it.
Hmm.
And the reality of it is, if you think about it, teachers don't have legal training. They don't know. They're doing the best they can. And I mean, teachers are overwhelmed to begin with. And then they're never really taught how to write IEPs, yet alone how to interpret information from evaluations and put them onto the IEPs, and then how to implement them. And so it's a lot of times schools, and I say it all the time, they're not trying to be mean, they're not trying to lie, they just don't know any better.
Right.
And this is what they've been told. And so that's what they do. And it's, I say all the time, question it, ask
Well,
questions.
okay, good. Because my next question was, okay, well, what do we do about that? That's a big statement, right? Like teachers don't necessarily know. Very few people are trying to like pull one over on a child who's has some
Right,
special needs and an IEP. Like very few people are in this field. We're not making big bucks. Like
right.
not a thing. But what are some of the things? So questioning, for example, what are some things that parents and educators can do given the lack of maybe the lack of training, the lack of information, the lack of perspective? Like where do we start with that?
I mean, inform yourself. Knowledge is power, I always say. There's a lot of podcasts out there. There's a lot of, information sites out there, but obviously be careful of where you're getting your information because there's a lot out there that's true and a lot that's not.
Mm-hmm.
But I always say if it doesn't feel right, like trust your gut. Our intuition is better than we all give it credit for. Parent, caregiver, foster parent, whatever capacity you're in, teachers, everything. If something doesn't feel right, it's not right. Something's wrong. And the challenge, like it's question it, like why? Well, wait a minute. He seems to be, the child seems to be doing this at this time every day. Well, let's look at, what's really going on,
Yeah.
and schools try to say, well, we don't do that or we can't do that. Well, yeah, no, that's not the way the law is written. If the child needs it, guess what? You have to find a way to do it. Now,
Okay, this is a good one, and I feel like it's a simple buzzword that I have learned over the years to tell parents. But this question of need. So tell us how the law is written, because a lot of people want to say at schools, and again, we have to make a distinction between school, the educational realm, and what we would otherwise call probably the medical realm, like private practice and that kind of thing,
right.
right? Because those two things are not the same, number one. But and the school based is need based. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So the need based is based on an educational impact and what the child needs to be able to level the playing field between them and neurotypical developing peers so that they have an equal place in the field of competition that obviously we're all in, although we don't want to. um, and it's interesting you say that the medical and the educational need, because that's huge. And I've done several presentations to service providers of how to write the reports to get the educational need, because private providers do these fabulous, wonderful reports of all these needs. And the school looks at it and says, yep, that's all medical. We don't need to do anything. Whereas simple language twists and changes puts the educational impact. So if, an occupational therapist is saying that there's issues with fine motor, well, putting that into as evidenced by the handwriting and teacher not understanding what the child is writing. There's your educational impact. That hits your need for school and that triggers the school's responsibility.
Yeah. And so just linking it back. So what that, I mean, you're giving us
Yeah.
essentially one simple strategy for, and if you're a parent listening to this, you can ask your provider, your private provider,
Yeah.
to phrase it this way, right? Linking it back to the curriculum. I don't know, maybe not guilty is the wrong word, but I certainly in reports have said child would benefit from XYZ. And that's not going to help anybody at school.
Nope. Because everything, I mean, let's look at it reality. Child will benefit from a one-on-one. Well, every child would benefit from a one-on-one, but it's child requires to access the general education curriculum.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those are the buzzwords and the keywords. And I mean, when doing IEPs at IEP meetings, reviewing it, like I always have to tell the school, can't have benefits from, can't have, it's requires. And they're like, oh yeah, and which is frustrating because like, yeah, clients are paying me as an attorney and I'm having to teach the schools how to do their jobs sometimes. But, and again, it's not the teacher's fault always because they're not taught how to write IEPs, you
I think
know?
this is the other piece, which I don't know. It's not that it was news to me, but somebody said it this way. And I want you to kind of expand on this as well, which is an IEP is a legal document.
Correct.
Can you like frame that out for us a little bit and like how, and I don't know, just talk about that.
So yeah, no, that's fine. So it is. An IEP is a legal document that is the school is required to do all of these things to implement, so that your child can progress towards the general education curriculum is the way it's, written. And so it's all the way IDEA, which is the Individuals Disability Education Act. I'm so used to saying IDEA, I never remember the words. But that's the law that special education falls under, the federal law. And it's very particular about how the IEPs are written, the parts of the IEP, what goes in the IEP, implementation and enforcement of the IEP. And so they are legally required to do all of these things in the IEP, to provide the supplemental aids and services, to work on the goals, to provide the services, whether it's related services, your speech, your OTPT, or your special ed services. And it's a legal requirement. And it's, like that's the challenge. Now, the hard part is that what are the remedies if the school doesn't and who's held accountable? And that's a whole nother story. But it's a legal document that the schools are required to do. It's not yeah, I feel like doing it, I don't feel like doing it. It's no, no, it says right here, you need to do this.
I want people to notice the tone of voice that you're speaking with as you say the words. This is a legal document. It's not optional, it's required because it's super matter of fact.
Yep.
And one of the things that I really like about the way you practice and the way you are in the world is you are very matter of fact. And part of that, a big part of that comes from you know the law, you know your rights, you've sat in all the chairs, you have you give yourself credit for having a really big understanding of how this works. The reason I'm pointing that out is because lots of parents and educators for that matter, adults, will get their undies all in a twist about, well, you need to be doing this and you need to be doing that. And and they will escalate. Talk about that a little bit.
So there's a way to escalate. I did a video one time called the Shefter way because my father was like the king of this stuff. And it's a tribute to him. And he just like doesn't take no for an answer. And it's like, okay, so yes, you can't do that, but who's your higher up that can do that? And goes up the ladder. And he's never nasty, mean, complaining. It's just a matter of fact of, okay, I understand this, but there's this. And to put into some context, he got Buick to replace a transmission on a 5-year-old car. And they were trying to say, it's 5 years old, it's out of warranty. And my father's response was, it only has 24,000 miles on it. I don't care that it's 5 years old. It's a transmission. Age should not. And he just kept going up to not to, okay, yes, your pay grade can't do this. Who can? And kept going up and nicely. And just matter of fact, here are the facts. This is the way it is. This is what needs to be done. Let's find a middle ground. Let's make it work. And that's how I practice. I mean, that's how I was raised. That's how he ran his business, and that's how I run my business. It's not, I never put fault, I never put blame, even though there is oftentimes fault and blame. You don't need to point that out. It's very, like I understand it's a difficult time, but this is how the IEP is written. What can we find? What supports can we put in place to help you to be able to implement this IEP?
Yeah.
And what does that look like?
And the image I'm getting, right, is people talk about the squeaky wheel, but the image I'm getting is just water over a rock, right? It's like
Yep.
you wear it down. The water's not mad. The rock is not mad. We're just, this is how this is going to go. Oh, maybe you didn't hear me, but maybe you didn't understand. Maybe I need to talk to somebody else. And I just think I mean, this is like kind of life 101 also, but when we can keep calm and persist and understand, and again, particularly in this area, because there is a law still, maybe we're going to talk about that in a second, where, again, you just keep showing up and nobody has to, I'm a fan of saying, nobody has to be mad about this.
Right.
You can just show up and be like, no, nope, again, try again.
Right. Exactly. And that's what you do. It's like, going into IEP meetings and going into any, CIP meetings or whatever type of meetings, school meetings there are, I always, of course, have my meeting with my clients beforehand, and I know where our end game is. And we talk through, is this a realistic end game? Is this something we can get to? What are the steps necessary to get there? And then put it in motion. And so, yes, we know where the end game is. I don't play this cat and mouse, like try and hide it from the school and try and trick the school. But I put it out there of like, okay, well, you said 2 months ago, XYZ. Why are you saying ABC now? Okay, but where's the data to support that? And I just use their language back at them. And that's the key that parents need to know is understand that just because they're saying it doesn't mean it's the way it is. It's the only way to be. Like, where's the data to support that? If you said something else before, why are you saying something different now? And where's the data? What's changed? There's nothing changed. So then what you said 2 months ago is what the reality is. And that's what we need to be going off of, not this new thing from 2 months later.
Yeah. Yeah. And then holding some compassion for overwhelmed teachers and an overwhelmed system. And, and you're overwhelmed, not you, Frances, but you, the parent.
No, me too. But yeah.
We're all overwhelmed, right? Even kids.
Exactly.
Kids are overwhelmed too. Can we talk for just a second about, because we're recording this on September 10th, 2025, I think is the date. Yes. The climate is a little volatile in terms of education systems, federal education systems. Do you have, and I didn't ask you about this before, so I'm kind of springing this on you. What's your take here?
So, interestingly, I've done a lot of blog posts on this, and so did my former senior attorney. We're very on top of it.
Right.
I mean, what the current administration is trying to do, he can't fully dismantle the Department of Education because it takes an act of Congress.
Okay.
So, but yes, he can let go of a lot of people and make it paralyzed. What people don't realize is that the states already have a lot of the power of the education system.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's like, oh, we should give the power back to the states. Well, the states have the power.
Mm-hmm.
The federal oversees to make sure the states are doing what they're supposed to be doing, implementing the federal law. And so where the Department of Ed comes in is that they're providing the oversight to make sure the federal law is being implemented, and they're also providing the funding. And that's the other issue that's happening is that the current administration has cut educational funding
Mm-hmm.
drastically.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that was recently done is he held back, and I don't remember the numbers because I went into law, not accounting for a reason, you know. Um, but it was like, tens of billions of dollars that he withheld, and then at the last minute released the majority, but not all of it, saying, look, I saved the day. It's like, no, you didn't. You still cut it by X amount. And people, like, I mean, obviously, what is $1 billion? Like, average person, even me, like, what is $1 billion? Like, the concept of what $1 billion is so hard. But when you think about it, when schools are operating on a multi-billion-dollar level, like, let's even say, okay, $5 billion. If $1 billion of that is cut, what's going to happen? Where are we going? And that's where the problem comes in, is that the funding being cut. And, I say often here in Montgomery County, Maryland, I'm not as worried about it because who we are, the consumers here, the people here, the clients here, are different level. The state itself is a different level in caring about education, but the poorer states that are struggling with special education to begin with because they don't have the bandwidth, they don't have the numbers that other areas have, they're the ones that are going to be suffering and struggling. And then these kids are going to, it's going to go back, what, in the 70s before we really had special education.
What I hear you saying is the current federal situation is playing a role of probably exacerbating existing issues. And so if you're in a school system that's functioning fairly well with a high tax base, from the state perspective, it's well run, maybe the effects are going to be minimized. If you're in a state where there's a lower tax base, where the system is not well run, where there have been issues in the past, and is this are we talking state? Are we talking county level? I mean, at some level, I think we're probably talking about counties, individual counties as well.
Yeah, definitely. It goes
Um,
down to that level.
those are going to be those are the kids that are going to be impacted.
Correct.
And I don't know if you have an answer. I certainly don't, except to highlight the problem, and I don't know, take the next step, whatever that is.
Yeah, I mean the problem is that unfortunately the ones it's going to impact the most are not generally in they don't know. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? They're not, the lower income aren't always as educated. Um, they don't know that there are other options out there. They don't know that this is wrong and I can fight for it. And then they also don't necessarily have the resources to fight for it
Or the time.
because,
I
right, or
mean,
the time,
financial
exactly.
or time. Yeah.
Right, because that's the thing. It's like, in the lower income, it's you're thinking about it. They're struggling every day to make sure they have a roof over their heads and food on their table and their kids are closed.
Yeah.
Like the fact that, we got to trust the school system. We want to trust the school system and put it there, and the school's doing the best we can, and we get that to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
But the schools, when held accountable, can do better and they're required to do better. And what happens? How do we make that happen?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And I think, I mean, there are a lot of things in the education system that need to be changed. there's just ways of doing it and ways of doing it effectively, and that it's going to get worse before it gets better, but not it doesn't need to get that much worse. Do you know what I mean? Like we don't need to lose a whole generation of kids being educated,
Yeah.
you know? So,
I feel like we went all the way out and got very existential. I want to bring it back before I get depressed.
yeah.
And what are some things, or what's a thing that if you are a caregiver or a parent or a foster parent or an auntie or even a friend of somebody who gets or needs special education services, what is a good first step? And let's say you can't afford Francis Shefter law.
Yeah.
What do we do?
So again, educate yourself, go out there. There's a lot of parent groups, like we do provide some pro bono. There are a lot of parent groups out there that do free pro bono, legal advice, advocacy, all of that. It's just basically keep advocating for your child, keep pushing back. One of the things my firm does is we do what we call a strategy session. It's technically what some people call a consultation. But what it is that we sit and meet with you as the parent, go through everything and give you a course of action. So obviously, most of the time we recommend that we engage with you because having a lawyer present, you usually get things done faster. But I'm a realist. I understand, like, not everybody can afford a lawyer. And so that's why we offer the strategy session. And I give you the steps that you need to take that you can fight on your own. And I always say, I hope it works. And if it doesn't, come back. We're here for you.
Yeah.
But at least, that's the idea, is that don't take no for an answer. Don't take the school saying, well, we don't have the resources, or, well, we don't do that here. Yeah, well, no, that doesn't work. Call the resolution and compliance unit, call the central office, go the next level up of, like, my school is saying that we can't do, they can't do this. What, where does that fit in? Like, question things.
At what level should we accept the no, or accept that somebody is telling us, like, where's the end of that? There are limits somewhere, and maybe it's the law, and so we go back to the law, but I don't know.
So the law's not as black and white as everybody always thinks it is. That's why we have lawyers. They go through lots of schooling. But like, that's what people always think. They don't realize it's not like stop on red, like that's not really the way the law is when it comes to education. But what I always do is I look at and balance the needs of the child. What's best for the child? You know, it's what do you want for your child is a big factor. So, okay, I have clients that I don't care. I want my child going to their neighborhood school with their friends. Okay. Well, clearly, yes, the IEP is a legal document, but as we all know, we can't force somebody to do their job. We can't make somebody do their job. So, what is our compromise? What are we willing to give up to make that happen? Because the way the law is written, if the school isn't implementing it, now we need to look at a more restrictive environment, a different program.
Yeah.
And if that's not where you want to go, then okay, then what can we do to tweak the IEP to support the teacher to get things in place and work with the school to make it work? And it's and what's best for my child and what works, we've considered homeschooling myself, for my child. And, I say it all the time, like, look, I'm an education attorney. I could probably get my child wherever I want for my child. But is there some place that I think is appropriate for her? And what's best for my family?
And that's an interesting question, right? Because those are not always the same thing. I mean, I have told many families, like, yes, your child needs speech, or yes, your child needs X therapy. And now's not the time, because what they need more is a nap.
Right.
What they
Yes.
need more is to be able to walk to and from school with their parent, and be in a place that is loving and accepting of them, whether or not they're getting great, in air quotes, great services. Are they
Right.
happy? Do they have friends? Do they have a good, home life balance? I mean, these are real questions.
Yeah.
And so I have a family, in fact, that I work with right now where it's like, okay, they're in their neighborhood school. How long is this kid going to be able to stay there? I don't know, but we're doing another year because he's doing great. Um, and is that maximizing his academic potential? Probably not. Do we care? Is that the primary goal right now? No, it's
No.
not. It's not.
And that's what I say all the time is that for my children is their emotional well-being, self-confidence, emotional regulation, all of that other stuff comes before the academics. I'm so not worried about them academically.
Yeah.
That stuff can come later. But
Yeah.
at this young age, I want them to feel safe and secure and empowered and, confident in themselves. And unfortunately, in today's day and age, the school system, it's rough. Like even in Montgomery County with the bullying and all that other stuff.
Mhm.
And it's like, so let's find our solution of, you know what, if you need to be 5 minutes late to class, I don't care. If that's what you need to do to keep yourself emotionally safe because you need to stop and talk to somebody or you need to avoid somebody in the hallway, that's okay. Like we'll deal with that. But like those are the important things here. Like let's make sure our kids are happy and healthy. Academics, you can pick up later. Like,
It's interesting because I think, oops, um, so often in the IEP, we put these academic goals, and yes,
right.
there's a social emotional like section that somehow is like supposed to be separate from everything else. I don't know how that works, but um, and teachers often, and so if you're a teacher listening to this, I want to encourage you, like, stop stressing about your data.
Right. Well,
Well, okay, but hold on. Right? Take the data, but don't stress about like pulling it out of a child who's not, that's not their primary goal right now.
yeah.
Like again, like it, it, it is, listen, I think it's very difficult to strike a balance here, and some of it is
Hmm.
what I consider to be common sense and what I consider to be common decency, and that is probably different from what somebody else thinks. So fine, have the data, but don't stress about it. Don't
Right.
worry about the progress. We're not trying to make children stressed out at school in pursuit of some academic goal. I think that's my major
Correct.
point.
Yes, agreed, agreed. And look, as a parent, coming from the parent side, and even as an attorney representing parents, if you're showing me like, yes, I agree, academically, he's not progressing as much because right now this is what we're focusing on behaviorally, and this is where the behaviors are improving. And once we get the behaviors and him being able to school or her being able to sit right or whatever it is, then we can focus on the academics. I can guarantee no parent most likely no attorney is going to come back and say like, oh no, you need to focus on the academics also, like just show that there's something. But if you sit there and be like, well, I don't know, the behavior's off the wall and academics is off the wall and I can't do anything about it, that's not okay.
Right.
But show that like, yes, academics matter, we want academic progress, but if you show, obviously we know if a child's basic needs aren't being met and if they're not emotionally regulated, they're not going to make academic progress, period. No matter what a teacher does. You can sit there and skill and drill all day long, and they're not going to make that academic progress because there's too much other stuff. So
Yep.
let's focus on what we need to do of the basic needs being met, the emotional regulation, the, self-confidence, the feeling that they can do it, and start where we are, and then we can go and progress. And that's like, well, that's a whole nother story, but where our educational system is failing our kids also is so academic focused, which yes, there's school there needs to be, but there's got to be a balance there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's another topic for another day.
Yeah.
Um, has your approach of being collaborative yet firm ever backfired? Have you ever needed to get like upset with anybody?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like I say it all the time. I play nice until they annoy me. And then I'm not as nice, you know. And then, like I litigate if I have to, I appeal if I have to, I do what I have to do. But, it's always, I had one special ed coordinator in DC many moons ago, and we came to a disagreement and I said something about filing and she's like, but I like you. I'm like, I like you too. That has nothing to do with it. the reality of it is this kid needs XYZ, and you're telling me you can't give it. And I think you're supposed to. And so we'll have a judge make that determination. It has nothing to do with liking people. It's never obnoxious. I'm never, I- I'm not rude. I don't try to trip people up when I cross-examine them, but I do, I just try to get the facts. Like, here are the facts, and here's what I see, and hold the teachers accountable. I feel bad doing it because I know they're overworked and underpaid, but this is what the rule is, and this is, I play nice, giving them enough chances to dig themselves out. And if they choose not to and still sit there and like hold their position, okay, then I'm not going to be not as nice,
Yep.
you know, because what matters is the child and this child's education. And I don't care about anything else.
Yeah.
This child being educated and reaching full potential is where I am with it.
Your blog and your emails are very, very useful. So I want people to know, where can they find you? Where do you work? And all of that. Tell us.
Sure. So shefterlaw.com, Shefterlaw, my blog, my podcast, my YouTube channel, all of my social media, everything is there. All the links are there. So it's the easiest way. You can also start the intake process. If you're like, I might have a case, I don't know, you have a free case analysis with one of my staff members. Um, and we are based in Rockville, Maryland. We provide legal services in Maryland, DC, and Florida, but we can provide advocacy services nationwide as well as American schools overseas. Because I found out once when I had a client call from Germany that yes, they do have to follow IDEA because it's federal law and you're an American school, which was interesting. But yeah, so you don't have to, it's the only area of quote, quote law that you don't have to be a lawyer to be an advocate is education. And so we can be an advocate anywhere because it's federal law. Each state's a little bit different, but it's generally under the federal law.
All right. We will link to all of that in the show notes. Frances, thank you for coming and talking to us about this.
Of course. Thank you for having me.